In 35 years as an emergency room nurse, I've learned that text messages at 2 in the morning never bring good news. But when my phone lit up with my sister's name on a freezing January night and all it said was Margaret, I'm in your ER, room 12. Don't tell David. I felt my blood turn to ice. I was at Providence Portland Medical Center within 20 minutes, still in my pajamas under my coat. The night shift nurse at the desk, Jamie, looked up with recognition and concern. She'd worked with me for years and knew I never came in off duty unless something was catastrophically wrong. Room 12's curtain was drawn. I pulled it back and barely recognized the woman in the bed. My sister Claire, who'd always been the pretty one, the put-together one, looked like she'd aged 10 years. Her skin had a grayish pallor. Her hair was noticeably thinner than when I'd seen her at Thanksgiving just 6 weeks ago, and her hands trembled as she gripped the thin hospital blanket. "Claire?" I whispered, pulling a chair close to her bed. "What happened?" She looked toward the door nervously before speaking. "I think David is poisoning me." The words hung in the air between us, absurd and terrifying at the same time. David Morrison, my brother-in-law of 23 years, was a respected financial advisor, a deacon at their church, the man who hosted neighborhood barbecues and volunteered at the food bank, the man I'd always thought was too boring to be dangerous. "Claire, that's a serious accusation. What makes you think?" "I'm not crazy, Margaret." Her voice cracked. "I know how it sounds, but I've been sick for months. The doctors say it's stress, maybe early onset dementia, but it's getting worse. I can't remember things. I have these horrible stomach pains. My hair is falling out. And tonight, after David gave me my vitamins, I started vomiting blood." I studied my sister's face. As a nurse, I'd developed a sixth sense for when patients were telling the truth about their symptoms. Claire wasn't hysterical or paranoid. She was terrified. "Why did you come here? Why not Swedish or OHSU?" "Because you work here. Because I needed someone who would believe me. David thinks I'm at book club. I told him I was going to Susan's house. I drove myself here and checked in under my maiden name, Claire Patterson." "Smart girl," I thought. "Let me see your chart." I stepped out to the nurse's station. Jamie pulled up Claire's records without question. What I saw made my medical training kick into high gear. The blood work showed elevated liver enzymes, signs of gastrointestinal bleeding, and something that caught my attention, a slightly elevated white blood cell count that suggested her body was fighting something. But what struck me most was the pattern. I pulled up Claire's medical history from her primary care physician, which was accessible through our shared network. Over the past 8 months, she'd been to the doctor 17 times. Complaints of nausea, dizziness, memory problems, muscle weakness, stomach pain. Each time, her doctor had noted anxiety or stress in the assessment, prescribed antacids, recommended therapy, suggested meditation. No one had run a comprehensive toxicology screen. "Jamie," I said carefully, "I need you to add a heavy metals panel to her labs, and I need it flagged as priority." Jamie raised an eyebrow but didn't question me. 20 minutes later, I was back in Claire's room with a bottle of water and a plan. "I need you to tell me everything. Start from the beginning." Claire closed her eyes, gathering her thoughts. "It started last May. David's firm was going through something he never told me exactly what, but he was stressed. Then one day, he came home and said everything was fine. He'd gotten a promotion, we were going to be more than comfortable. He started being extra attentive, making me special smoothies in the morning. Giving me these vitamins, he said, would help with my stress. Do you still have the vitamin bottles? He takes them with him to work now, says he keeps them in his office so he remembers to take his own. But Margaret, here's the thing, I feel better when he's away on business trips. 3 weeks ago, he went to a conference in Chicago for 4 days. By the 3rd day, I felt almost normal again. My head was clear. The stomach pain stopped. Then he came home, and within 2 days, I was sick again. A chill ran down my spine. This was a pattern, A deliberate pattern. Has he changed anything else? Insurance policies? Financial arrangements? Claire's eyes widened. How did you know? Last July, he said we should update our life insurance. He increased my policy to $2 million. Said it was smart planning now that we're getting older. And he had me sign some papers about our retirement accounts, making him the sole beneficiary if anything happened to me. Did you see a lawyer? David said we didn't need one. He works in finance, so I trusted him. Her voice broke. I trusted him, Margaret. We've been married for 23 years. We raised 2 kids together. How could he? We don't know anything for certain yet. I interrupted, though my gut was screaming that my sister was right. But we're going to find out. First, I need you to do exactly as I say. You can't go home tonight. He'll be furious if I don't. Claire, listen to me. If you're right, and I believe you might be, going home could kill you. You're staying here tonight for observation. I'll handle David. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. A text from David. Is Claire with you? She never came home from book club. Susan says she never showed up. I showed Claire the message. Her face went pale. What do I tell him? Nothing. I'll handle it. I stepped into the hallway and called David. Margaret, thank God. He answered on the first ring, his voice perfectly calibrated with concern. Is Claire with you? I've been worried sick. She's here at the hospital, David. She had some kind of episode at book club, severe vomiting. Susan brought her to the ER and called me. I'm with her now. A pause. A fraction too long. Is she okay? I'm coming right now. No. I made my voice firm. David, it's 3 a.m. She's stable, but they've given her something to help her sleep. Come by in the morning during visiting hours. There's nothing you can do right now except get some rest yourself. Another pause. What do the doctors think it is? They're running tests. Probably a stomach virus. We'll know more tomorrow. After I hung up, my hands were shaking. That pause, that calculation in his voice. I'd heard it the moment he was deciding what to say, how to react. A truly worried husband would have been in his car already, arguing with me about coming to the hospital. David had been thinking. I went back to Claire's room. He's not coming tonight. That gives us time. Time for what? Time to save your life. The next morning, I called in every favor I had. Dr. Chen, the toxicologist, agreed to personally oversee Claire's test results. Dr. Williams, our chief of emergency medicine, listened to my concerns and ordered a comprehensive evaluation that went far beyond standard protocols. Most importantly, I called my friend Detective Sarah Martinez with Portland PD. Sarah and I had met years ago when I'd treated a domestic violence victim who later pressed charges. Sarah had been impressed with my documentation and medical reports, which had helped secure a conviction. We'd stayed in touch. Margaret, what you're describing is attempted murder, Sarah said over coffee in the hospital cafeteria. But it's also incredibly difficult to prove. Even if we find poison in her system, he'll claim she took it herself, or that it's from some other source. We need evidence that connects him directly. What kind of evidence? Financial motive, purchase records, opportunity, and ideally, the poison itself. Can she access their home? Not without him knowing. What about his office? That gave me an idea. David's firm was Morrison Financial Partners, and he was the Morrison in question. He'd built the business from nothing, which meant he controlled everything. But Claire had told me something once. She had a key to his office from years ago when she used to bring him lunch. Did she still have it? When I asked her, Claire fumbled in her purse and pulled out a keychain. I've had this forever. I don't even think about it. The heavy metals panel came back that afternoon. Dr. Chen found me in the break room, his face grim. Margaret, your sister has acute arsenic poisoning. The levels in her blood are consistent with chronic low-level exposure over several months. My hands clenched around my coffee cup. How much time does she have? If the exposure continues? Weeks, maybe days. Her liver is compromised. Her kidneys are starting to show damage. If you hadn't brought her in when you did. He didn't finish the sentence. Can you put that in writing? I already have. And I've notified the authorities. This is a criminal matter now. Detective Martinez met me at the hospital within the hour. Together with Claire, we formulated a plan. It was risky, possibly illegal, but we were out of options. Claire would be discharged that evening with instructions to rest at home, but instead of going home, she'd go to my house. I would go to David's office that night and look for evidence. Margaret, you could be charged with breaking and entering, Sarah warned. Anything you find might not be admissible in court. Then follow me there. If I find something, call it in as an anonymous tip and discover it yourself. But I'm not letting my sister die because of legal technicalities. That night, I stood outside Morrison Financial Partners in downtown Portland, Claire's key in my trembling hand. It was 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. The building was mostly empty, just a few lawyers and accountants working late on other floors. I dressed in business casual and carried a briefcase, looking like I belonged. The key worked. David's office was exactly what I'd expected. Expensive desk, leather chairs, walls covered with certifications and photos of him shaking hands with important people. I pulled on latex gloves and started searching. His desk drawers were locked, but I'd anticipated that. Years of working in a hospital had taught me that most desk locks were simple. I used a paperclip and had them open in under a minute. Inside, I found files on clients, financial statements, nothing unusual. Then I found the bottom drawer. It was deeper than the others, and inside was a small safe. No key, just a combination lock. I sat back, thinking, what numbers would David use? His birthday? Their anniversary? I tried 6 combinations before I got it. 0723, July 23rd. The day his first wife had died. I froze. His first wife, Mary Ann. She died 12 years ago, before David married Claire. I'd never thought much about it. She'd had some kind of illness. I remembered. The safe clicked open. Inside was a bottle of white powder with no label, a small notebook, and a burner phone. I photographed everything with my phone before touching anything. The notebook was a ledger of sorts, with dates and amounts. I recognized some of the dates they corresponded with when Claire had told me she'd been feeling particularly ill. May 15 to 0.5 grams. June 3 à 0. 75 grammes. June 31. 0 gramme. July 18 to 1.5 grams. The amounts increased over time. A dosing schedule. But it was the last page that made my blood run cold. Scrawled in David's handwriting, M, 11 months, C, 8 months so far, same ratio, M. Marianne. He'd killed his first wife the same way. I heard footsteps in the hallway. My heart hammered as I quickly snapped photos of the notebook pages, then carefully placed everything back in the safe. I closed it, locked the desk drawers, and was standing by the window, looking at the city lights, when David walked in. Margaret? His voice was sharp with surprise. What are you doing in my office? I turned, keeping my face neutral. David, Claire gave me her key. I hope you don't mind. I wanted to talk to you privately, and I knew you work late on Tuesdays. His eyes flicked to his desk, checking if anything was disturbed. You could have called. I know, but this is a difficult conversation. I sat in one of his client chairs, uninvited, watching his reaction. Claire's test results came back. The doctors found something concerning. He sat behind his desk, his face a mask of concern. What did they find? Elevated liver enzymes, kidney problems, signs of toxic exposure. They're running more tests. I watched him carefully. David, have you noticed anything unusual at your house? Any chemical smells? Problems with the water? Anything like that? No, nothing. He leaned back in his chair. Is Claire going to be okay? The doctors aren't sure yet. They want to keep her for observation, maybe a few more days. I offered to stay with her, so you don't have to worry about sleeping at the hospital. Relief flickered across his face, brief, but I saw it. He wanted Claire in the hospital, away from home, where he couldn't finish what he'd started. That's very kind of you, Margaret. I'm sure Claire appreciates having you there. She does. She's been remembering things, too, which the doctors say is interesting. Memories from years ago, details about your life together. She mentioned your first wife, Marianne. That must have been a difficult time for you. Something changed in his eyes, a hardness I'd never seen before. Ancient history. I'd rather not discuss it. Of course. I understand. I stood to leave. Well, I should get back to the hospital. I just wanted to let you know in person what was happening. As I walked to the door, he spoke again. Margaret? How did you get into the building after hours? I turned, smiled. The security guard recognized me from when I visited before. I told him I was meeting you. I see. He didn't believe me, but he couldn't prove anything. Drive safely. I met Detective Martinez 2 blocks away. She was in an unmarked car, engine running. I slid into the passenger seat and handed her my phone with the photos. Sarah, he killed his first wife. The same way. The notebook proves it. She scrolled through the images, her jaw tightening. This is enough for a warrant. We can search his office, his home, everything. But Margaret, you realize you just committed a felony. I know. I don't care. My sister is alive because of it. Let me make some calls. In the meantime, you need to get Claire somewhere safe. Not your house if he's suspicious. That's the first place he'll look. Do you have anywhere else? I thought for a moment. My ex-husband, Robert. We're on good terms. He has a cabin on the coast, near Cannon Beach. No one knows about it except family. Perfect. Take her there tonight. I'll call you when we have the warrant. By midnight, Claire and I were in my car heading west on Highway 26. She'd been silent most of the drive, processing everything I'd told her about the notebook, the arsenic, Marianne. I used to feel sorry for him, she finally said. After Marianne died, he seemed so devastated, so lost. That's why I said yes when he asked me out a year later. I thought I could help him heal. She laughed bitterly. Turns out I was just the next target. You couldn't have known, Claire. He's a psychopath. He's good at this. That's the terrifying part. How good he is at it. Everyone loves David. Our kids adore him. The church adores him. His clients trust him with their life savings. And the whole time he was planning to murder me. Why do you think he did it? The money? Partly. But I think there's something else. Control. When I look back, I realize he's been controlling every aspect of my life for years. Who I see, where I go, what I eat. He isolated me from my friends, so gradually I didn't even notice. It wasn't about the money. It was about the power of deciding whether I lived or died. We reached the cabin at 2 a.m. It was a small place, weathered gray by salt and wind, perched on a bluff overlooking the Pacific. Robert had left the key where I'd asked, under the 3rd flower pot on the porch. Inside, we double-locked the doors and closed all the curtains. Claire collapsed on the couch while I made tea. Neither of us could sleep. What happens now? She asked. Now we wait for the police to do their job. Sarah will call when they have the warrant. Then David will be arrested, and you'll be safe. Will I, though? He's smart, Margaret. What if he gets away with it? What if he comes after me? He won't. We have evidence. We have proof. But even as I said it, I wondered if I believed it myself. The call came at 6 a.m. Detective Martinez's voice was tight with controlled anger. Margaret, we have a problem. We executed the warrant an hour ago. David's office was clean. The safe was empty. The desk drawers were locked but contained nothing but normal financial documents. No notebook, no powder, nothing. My heart sank. He knew. After I left, he cleaned everything out. It gets worse. He's filed a missing persons report on Claire. Says she's been mentally unstable, possibly suicidal, and now she's vanished. He's painting himself as the worried husband, and you as the unstable sister who's manipulated her into running away. That son of a... There's more. I ran a background check on Marianne Morrison's death. Cause of death was listed as acute liver failure due to an autoimmune condition. The attending physician noted she'd been ill for almost a year. No autopsy was performed because David declined it on religious grounds. Can you exhume the body? Already filed the request. But that takes time, could be weeks before we get approval and results. In the meantime, we have nothing that directly connects David to the arsenic. The photos from your phone show a notebook and white powder, but without the physical evidence, it's just your word against his. I felt the walls closing in. David had outmaneuvered us. What do we do now? We need him to make a mistake. We need him to show his hand. And I have an idea, but it's going to require Claire's cooperation, and it's going to be dangerous. 2 days later, Claire called David from an untraceable phone. Detective Martinez had set it up, routing the call through 3 different servers so it couldn't be traced to the coast. "David, it's me," Claire said, her voice shaking partly from genuine fear, partly from acting. "Claire, thank God. Where are you? Are you safe? I've been so worried. I know what you did. I know about the poison. I know about Marianne." Silence on the other end. Then, his voice changed. The concern vanished, replaced with something cold and flat. "What are you talking about?" "I have proof, David. I have your notebook. Margaret found it, and I took it. I know everything." "That's impossible. He caught himself, but the damage was done. He'd just admitted there was a notebook to find. "I'm going to the police with it. I'm going to tell them everything. About the arsenic, about the life insurance, about how you killed your first wife. Claire, listen to me very carefully." His voice was soft now, dangerous. "You're not thinking clearly. You've been sick. Margaret has filled your head with paranoid delusions. Come home. We'll get you help. We'll get through this together." "I'm not coming home. I'm never coming home." "Then you're making a terrible mistake." The threat was clear. "If you go to the police with these accusations, I will destroy you. I will prove you're mentally incompetent. I will take everything, the house, the savings, your reputation. Our children will side with me. You'll end up with nothing. I'd rather have nothing than be dead." She hung up. Detective Martinez, who'd been recording the call, smiled grimly. "That's not a confession, but it's close." He admitted to the notebook, and he threatened her. Combined with the medical evidence of arsenic poisoning, we might have enough to bring charges. Might? His lawyer will argue the notebook could have been about anything. That Claire stole it and misinterpreted it. That the arsenic came from some other source, contaminated food, old paint, anything. Rich men with expensive lawyers rarely go to jail, Margaret. You know that. So what do? We make him desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. The next day, the Portland Tribune ran a story. Local financial advisor's wife missing after mysterious illness. The article was carefully worded to avoid libel, but it raised questions. Why had Claire Morrison, a beloved third-grade teacher, suddenly disappeared? Why had she been repeatedly treated for symptoms consistent with poisoning in the months before her disappearance? Why had her husband waited 12 hours to report her missing? David's phone started ringing. Clients wanted reassurances. The church board asked him to step down from his position as deacon temporarily while this situation resolves. His business partners suggested he take a leave of absence. His carefully constructed life was crumbling. On the 4th night, he took the bait. Claire had set up a fake email account and sent him a message. "Meet me at Poetic Mansion tomorrow at midnight. Come alone. We need to talk." Poetic Mansion was a historic house-turned-museum in the hills above Portland, closed at night, with sweeping views of the city. It was also isolated, surrounded by forest, the perfect place for someone to meet in secret or to try to stage an accident. Detective Martinez assembled a team. Plainclothes officers would be hidden around the property. They'd have night vision, audio equipment, everything they needed to document what happened. Claire would wear a wire. I would be nearby in an unmarked van, listening to everything. If at any point you feel unsafe, say the word lighthouse, Sarah instructed Claire. We'll move in immediately. Don't try to be a hero. We just need him to say something incriminating. That night, I sat in the van with Sarah and 2 other officers, watching Claire walk up the path to Poetic Mansion. She was a small figure in the darkness, illuminated occasionally by the security lights. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. David's car pulled up 5 minutes late. He got out, looked around carefully, then walked toward Claire. Through the audio feed, we could hear everything. "Claire, you came. I said I would. Where's the notebook?" "Somewhere safe. I'll give it to you, but I want something in return." "What?" "A divorce. And a settlement. $5 million. Then I disappear, and you never hear from me again." He laughed. It was a terrible sound, devoid of any humor. "You think you can blackmail me? I think we can help each other. You don't want the police looking into Marianne's death. I don't want to spend years in court fighting you. This way, we both get what we want. And if I say no, then I go to the police with everything. The notebook, the arsenic in my blood, the testimony from Margaret about finding the evidence in your office. Maybe it's enough to convict you, maybe not. But it will destroy your reputation either way. Your business, your standing in the community, everything you've built. Is that worth $5 million? Another long pause. How do I know you'll keep your word? How do I know you won't take the money and go to the police anyway? You don't. But I'm giving you the choice. $5 million and your freedom, or take your chances with the justice system. What's it gonna be, David? In the van, we held our breath. He was going to say something. I could feel it. You know what, Claire? You're right. $5 million is a small price to pay to make this all go away. His voice turned contemplative. But there's an easier solution. One that doesn't cost me anything. What are you? The audio erupted with the sound of a struggle. Sarah was already moving, yelling into her radio. "All units move in, now!" I jumped out of the van and ran toward the mansion, my nurse's instinct overriding any sense of self-preservation. In the darkness ahead, I could see shadowy figures wrestling. David had Claire by the throat, pushing her backward toward the low wall that overlooked a 100-foot drop into the ravine below. "You should have died months ago," he was screaming. "Quietly, in your sleep. Like Marianne. But you couldn't even do that right. You had to be difficult. You had to involve that bitch sister of yours." Police officers swarmed from all directions, but David didn't seem to notice. He was focused entirely on Claire, his hands around her neck, her feet lifting off the ground. "David Morrison. Police. Let her go." I reached them, just as Sarah fired her taser. David convulsed and collapsed, releasing Claire. She fell to the ground, gasping and coughing. I dropped to my knees beside her, checking her pulse, her breathing, her neck for damage. "I'm okay," she wheezed. "I'm okay." David was face down on the ground, officers cuffing him, reading him his rights. He was still screaming. "She tried to blackmail me. You all heard it. She admitted it. I was defending myself." "We heard you confess to poisoning your wife," Sarah said calmly. "We heard you confess to killing Marianne, and we have video of you attempting to murder Claire by throwing her off this wall. You're done, Mr. Morrison." The trial took 8 months. In that time, Marianne Morrison's body was exhumed. The medical examiner found massive amounts of arsenic in her hair and bone samples, consistent with poisoning over an extended period. David's financial records revealed he'd taken out a $2 million life insurance policy on Marianne just months before she died, the same amount he'd insured Claire for. 3 of his former clients came forward with complaints that he'd embezzled from their accounts, using their money to fund his lifestyle while they thought it was safely invested. The white powder from his office safe, which we never found, didn't matter anymore. We didn't need it. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on 2 counts of attempted murder, 1 count of second-degree murder for Marianne's death, and multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. The judge sentenced him to 50 years without the possibility of parole. Claire sat beside me in the courtroom when the verdict was read. She didn't cry or celebrate. She just squeezed my hand and whispered, "It's over." But it wasn't over. Not really. In the aftermath, we learned there had been a third woman, David's girlfriend, before Marianne. She died in a car accident that was ruled accidental, but her family had always been suspicious. The investigation into that death was reopened. Claire moved into a small apartment near my house. She'd lost the house in the divorce. It was seized as part of David's assets, but she'd kept her teacher's pension and her life. She started therapy, joined a support group for domestic violence survivors, and slowly, painfully, began to rebuild. Her children struggled with the truth. David had been a good stepfather to them, or so they'd thought. Learning that he'd been a monster, that he'd planned to murder their mother, shattered their understanding of their family. It took time and family counseling, but eventually they came around. As for me, I faced consequences for breaking into David's office. The district attorney considered charges, but ultimately decided that my actions, while illegal, had saved my sister's life and brought a serial killer to justice. I received a formal reprimand from the hospital for conduct unbecoming a medical professional, but kept my job. Detective Martinez and I became closer friends. She told me later that Claire's case had reminded her why she became a cop, to protect people who couldn't protect themselves, to find justice when the system failed. A year after David's conviction, Claire came over for Sunday dinner. It was just the two of us, pasta and wine, talking about nothing in particular. At the end of the night, as she was leaving, she turned to me. "Margaret, I never thanked you properly. You don't need to thank me. You're my sister." "No, I do. You believed me when no one else did. You risked everything to save my life. Most people wouldn't have done that. They would have thought I was crazy, or told me to work it out with my husband, or just not wanted to get involved. But you didn't hesitate." "Of course I didn't hesitate. Your family." She hugged me, and for the first time in over a year, I felt her body relax completely. The fear was gone. The constant vigilance, the looking over her shoulder, the waiting for something terrible to happen, it was finally gone. "I'm going to be okay," she said, and I knew she meant it. "I know you are." As I watched her drive away that night, I thought about all the women who don't escape, the ones whose sisters don't work in emergency rooms and recognize the signs, the ones whose poisoners are more careful, who don't make mistakes, who get away with murder, the ones who die quietly, their deaths ruled natural causes, their killers free to find new victims. Claire was lucky. We were lucky. But luck shouldn't be the difference between life and death. That's why I'm telling this story. Not for recognition or praise, but because I want people to understand that these monsters exist. They look normal. They're charming and successful and beloved in their communities. They're trusted, and that's what makes them so dangerous. If you know someone who's chronically ill, and it started after they got married, or after their partner took out a big insurance policy, or when their partner suddenly became very attentive and controlling, pay attention. If someone tells you they think their partner is hurting them, believe them. Don't wait for proof. Don't tell them to give it more time or try couples counseling, because by the time you have proof, it might be too late. Claire survived because she trusted her instincts and reached out for help. She survived because I refused to accept the easy explanations. And she survived because Detective Sarah Martinez was willing to bend the rules to catch a killer. The medical community has started taking cases like Claire's more seriously. There's now a protocol at Providence Portland Medical Center and at hospitals across the country for screening suspected poisoning victims. It's called the Morrison Protocol, named after the case that exposed it. When patients present with unexplained chronic illness, doctors are trained to look for certain patterns, symptoms that improve when the patient is away from home, partners who are overly controlling of their medical care, recent life insurance policies, a history of previous partners who died young. It's not perfect. Nothing is. but it's a start. Sometimes I wonder about the woman who died in the car accident, the one before Marianne. What was her name? What were her dreams? Did she suspect what David was before it was too late? I'll never know. Her family has some closure now, at least. The investigation confirmed that her brake lines had been cut. David Morrison had been killing for over 30 years. Claire asked me once if I ever regretted breaking into David's office, risking my career and potentially my freedom to save her. I told her the truth. I'd do it again in a heartbeat, because she's my sister, because she deserved to live, because justice doesn't always follow the rules, and sometimes you have to break them to make things right. 3 years have passed now. Claire teaches 3rd grade again, at a different school in a different part of town. She's dating someone new, a kind, patient man who knows her story and loves her anyway. She goes to therapy every week and probably will for the rest of her life. Trauma doesn't just disappear, but she's alive. She's healing, and every day she wakes up is a day David Morrison didn't win. That text message at 2 a.m. changed everything. It saved my sister's life. It brought a serial killer to justice. It changed hospital protocols and helped other victims. All because Claire was brave enough to reach out, and I was stubborn enough not to let it go. If you take anything from this story, let it be this. Trust your instincts. Believe people when they tell you they're in danger. And never, ever underestimate what a determined woman can do when someone she loves is threatened. David Morrison is in prison, where he'll die. His victims have justice, finally, and my sister is free. That's all that matters.